Now, new research is highlighting growing openness to dry January. Drinkaware, the national independent charity working to prevent and reduce alcohol misuse, is encouraging adults across the country to consider taking part in Dry January, a month-long opportunity to reset habits, boost well-being and explore a more mindful relationship with alcohol. To chat about this, Meadhbh Firmino de Silva Santos, the Deputy Manager at Bushypark Addiction Treatment Centre, joins us on the line. Meadhbh, good morning. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, Alan. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks very much for joining us on this. From your experience, Meadhbh, are you seeing a real shift in how people in Ireland are thinking about alcohol? You know, we see various surveys that younger people are drinking less than previous generations, maybe more health conscious, or maybe going for a coffee. They prefer that to going to the pub.
Yeah, I suppose from the work that we're doing here in Bushypark, maybe not so much, but I know that the research is very positive out there in terms of that younger trend in particular, as you said, kind of going for more alcohol-free options, and that, that cultural acceptability of a lot of alcohol consumption probably not there with the younger generations. But yeah, it's reassuring. It is reassuring, and I think actually the research with the drinkaware barometer would show that actually older adults as well are very interested in looking at kind of going alcohol free, or certainly reducing their alcohol consumption.
Yeah, more than 60% of adults say they've tried or would try an alcohol-free period. That rises to 80%, I guess, unsurprisingly, as we were just talking about, among 18 to 24-year-olds. There does seem to be a generational difference there. But January can be a tough month emotionally for many people, Meadhbh. It's a dark, cold month, as we've seen in recent days. The next payday can feel like a very, very long way away. Does that make taking a break from alcohol harder, or can it actually be helpful?
I think actually, Alan, it can be quite helpful. I mean, some of the benefits of a dry January, are that that you're giving your body a break from alcohol, and that has huge benefits. Kind of in terms of mental health, physical health, improved sleep, and also very practically in terms of waste management and an impact on your pocket in terms of cash available and that. So those things are probably very, very important for people in January, when maybe budgets aren't too flush, and the body is perhaps had maybe an excessive Christmas and is looking to recharge and recuperate. So yeah, I think it's a good time to look at. I think it is a good time to look at reducing alcohol or eliminating it entirely.
One possible deterrent or off-putting factor for people thinking of dry January, Meadhbh, is that the research from Drinkaware is suggesting some people feel choosing not to drink still isn't fully accepted in Irish society, despite what we were just talking about, that kind of shift of less drinking amongst younger people. Is that something you see reflected in people seeking support, that they would like to not drink or drink less, but it's still kind of almost frowned upon?
Yeah, I do think at a society level that we do probably still have an issue around kind of the acceptability of going on a night out and not choosing to have an alcoholic drink. I think that's still definitely something there. I think there's that peer pressure piece. I know that's probably for older adults as well as younger. Go on. Why wouldn't you have a drink? I do feel that's still a challenge for people, and I think that the research does report that it's not fully accepted in Irish society to kind of not engage in alcoholic beverage when you're out socialising. So. I think that's probably important for people to bear in mind, that if people are choosing to do dry January, that kind of friends and family would be supportive of that.
Drinkaware says even 48 to 72 hours without alcohol can make a difference. From a health and well-being perspective, why is that short break so valuable?
Absolutely. Well, I suppose it's actually giving your body kind of time to detox, and it has quite a wide-reaching impact in terms of sleep stabilising, physical motivation for kind of eating well and exercising. Remarkably, within 1 week of being alcohol free, people report kind of calmer nervous system. You've got better sleep, fewer headaches. The body's kind of recovering, and by the end of a month, your liver has been given a break, and that really supports its ability to repair, and to kind of detox. So, like, there is huge significant health benefits of dry January, and like you said, even 48 to 72 hours of no alcohol does make a difference for people in terms of their physical health, and I would say emotional health as well. We have to remember that alcohol is a depressant. So while we're struggling on these cold January days and nights, I think kind of removing alcohol from the equation probably has a very positive knock-on effect for people, for their physical and mental health and financial health.
What would you say to those, Meadhbh, who feel that, and who are thinking or mulling over dry January but worry that alcohol-free months might end up leaving them isolated socially? I mean, how can people stay connected without feeling pressurised to drink, or that the only way they can meet up with friends is in a pub?
Yeah, well, I think that's a real concern for people, especially perhaps people whose social circle does tend to evolve around kind of, the pub or going out for a meal and accompanying drinks with that. I suppose Drinkaware would say that, like, there are, it's kind of looking at your social calendar, reimagining it as such, and maybe suggesting, social plans that don't revolve around alcohol or that. So, there are always options, like cinema, walks, that kind of thing. There's lots of things. I think one of the positives of dry January is it gives people an opportunity to reimagine, what socialising looks like, taking that alcohol out of the equation, and then it's just to kind of get social circles involved with that as well, or on board, as to say.
Finally, Meadhbh, from your perspective in addiction treatment, how can initiatives like Dry January act as a gateway to healthier long-term habits? How can Dry January be something that helps some of the people who come to you set them on the right path?
Sure. Well, I think Dry January is definitely something that, I think the whole idea of it is kind of looking at, reflecting on how a person consumes alcohol over a month, giving that space, that break, and that opportunity to really, I think sometimes alcohol consumption can be quite subconscious almost. It's just kind of almost a given, maybe it's Friday night, we go for drinks. There's a concept around mindful drinking where we're really kind of analysing, do I want this drink, or what's the downside of having this drink if I do choose to drink tonight? So it's quite I think it's quite important, and I think it gives people an opportunity as well to just reset and reflect on where they're at with their alcohol consumption. And for some people, their alcohol consumption isn't problematic, but they may be consuming more alcohol than they're even aware of. So I think that Dry January is good for this in terms of, building confidence around, people's ability to stay alcohol free, people's ability to have fun and socialise in a way that doesn't revolve around alcohol, the pub, and maybe restaurants and that.
Yeah, well, I would love to hear from listeners out there who are doing Dry January, what compelled you to try it, and how you're finding it. 086 1800 964. Meadhbh, great to speak to you about this. Thanks very much, and we'll chat to you again soon.
Thank you, Alan. Thanks very much.
That's Meadhbh Firmino de Silva Santos, the Deputy Manager of Bushypark Addiction Treatment Centre, joining us on Morning Focus.